We want to invite each of you to Acts Ministries 2020 Virtual Women's Conference. We're celebrating 30 years of ministry here, and for each decade we have a speaker. So we are preparing for not only the Ministries Conference, but we have a concert which will include our featured guest artist, Jacqueline Carr. So join us and don't miss this. Share it with someone and invite someone online. You can go to our website, actsministriesonline.org, for more information.
Welcome to the Words to Empower podcast, featuring Bishop Frank Stewart, pastor of the Acts Ministry in Conway and North Little Rock, and now Pastor Stewart.
You have to understand the customs and the history and the traditions of what was happening during Esther's time. They had asked her to go in and see the king, but nobody comes before the king without being called, without permission. You can't even go before the king looking sad. Looking sad before the king was a reason for him to execute you, remove your head. No matter what you were going through in your life. It is symbolic of the church house. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving. If it had not been for grace, all of us would have died in the house of the Lord. Because it doesn't matter what is happening in your personal life. When you come before the great king, you had to come in with thanksgiving and giving praise. Esther says something. Mordecai replies to it. And I want to take a subject from it, and that's in verse 14. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place. God's going to bless them. God's going to bring them out. If you don't move, God's still going to bring them out. But you and your father's house will perish. This is the famous and the powerful line that Mordecai said to Esther. Yet, who knows whether you have come to the kingdom, to the palace, for such a time as this. I want to use for a subject today. I don't plan on finishing today. It's going to take at least a couple of weeks to just get through this. The subject is this. In the palace, for such a time as this, but not making a difference. In the palace as Esther was, for such a time as the time she was living in. And the subject is, but not making a difference. When we think about the text and we think about the subject, think about what I just read. You must understand that we didn't accidentally have our mother and our father to give birth to us at this time in history. We didn't just happen to show up in the 21st century. Even though Mordecai didn't have all the revelation of it, he pondered the thought, Esther, it could be that God has placed you where you are for such a time as this. What do you mean for such a time? In a time when all the Jews are at the point of extinction. At the time of great trouble. That God had you born.
Stay tuned for more of Frank Stewart. And now for some special announcements.
Thanks for partnering with the Acts Ministries. We value your service and your donations. That's why we've made it easy to make contributions to support our ministry. Simply go to your web browser and click the search bar and type in actsministriesonline.org. Then click Donate Online. It's really that easy. For mobile giving, text the amount you wish to donate to 501-302-4242. That's Simple Give.
And now, more of Pastor Frank Stewart.
The cruelty. Everything that was going on with slavery. You ask yourself, how could that have happened in the world? And the world just watched. In 1995, there was a resolution that the Southern Baptist Convention came out with. It is called the Resolution on Racial Reconciliation on the 150th anniversary of the Southern Baptist Convention. 150 years of anniversary, the Southern Baptists, they wrote into law, into their constitution, they said this: be it further resolved that we lament and repudiate historical acts of evil, such as slavery, from which we continue to reap a bitter harvest. And we recognize that the racism which yet plagues our culture today is inextricably tied to the past. And then the Southern Baptist Convention says this: be it further resolved that we apologize to all African Americans for condoning and or perpetrating individuals and systematic racism in our lifetime. And we genuinely repent of racism of which we have been guilty, whether consciously or unconsciously. And be it further resolved that we ask forgiveness from our African American brothers and sisters, acknowledging that our own healing is at stake. What they said is that we were in a position to do something, and we didn't do enough, or we didn't do anything. I applaud them for an incredible level of humility and honesty. Come on. We're still waiting on the Catholic Church to say they could have done more. As they watched children, men and women, bodies stacked yards into into the heavens, killed, starved, and did nothing. Why do I bring up these two historical facts? Is because all of us are in the same position today. There are more slaves in the world today than there's ever have been. There are more hungry people in the world today than it ever has been. God says, I brought you to the palace for such a time as this. Just touch your neighbor and say, do you know why you're here? Many have no clue why they are living in the 21st century, why they have been born in this time in history. It is because we have not successfully taught it, because we have stayed away from it in fear. In Romans chapter 8, New King James Version, starting at verse number 26. Can I take my time? The problem is that we're trying to rush to an end that we don't understand that God had other plans for us. Oh, the clueless people that not only do we see in the world, but we see in the church. To think that our lives circle around us or evolve around us, working, living, and dying. And that is all. We have been born for a purpose. In Romans chapter 8, the text that I'm talking about, you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this, is such a familiar text that we've heard so much. It is such a danger. We've heard the text, and we've danced on the text, and we've shouted about the text. Esther in the palace, and she was there, and we've talked about it, but we really haven't understood it like we should have, because it is a text that cannot be preached to those who do not understand history and understand what God has said to us in His Word.
For mobile giving, text the amount you wish to donate to 501-302-4242.
The Acts Church in North Little Rock is located at 1224 Franklin Street. For a powerful word, join us at 9:30 a.m. for our morning worship service. Bible study is each Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. For more information, go to actsministriesonline.org or give us a call at 501-329-2055.
Thank you for tuning in to the Acts Ministry Podcast. The Acts Church is located at 1423 England Street in Conway and 1224 Franklin Street in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Tune in each day to hear an inspiring word from Pastor Frank Stewart.
We want to invite each of you to Acts Ministries 2020 Virtual Women's Conference. We're celebrating 30 years of ministry here, and for each decade we have a speaker. So we are preparing for not only the Ministries Conference, but we have a concert which will include our featured guest artist, Jacqueline Carr. So join us and don't miss this. Share it with someone and invite someone online. You can go to our website, actsministriesonline.org, for more information.